Hello and welcome to Lightcast Webinars. It's really great to have you with us today. We're excited to be talking about skills-based workforce transformation today, what this means, the opportunities you can unlock, and how you can undertake a skills-based workforce transformation in your organization. We have with us Andy Derman, our Executive Vice President of Global Business, Matt Mee, our Vice President of Talent Innovation, and Simon Haynes, the CEO of Simply Get Results. Now, if you have any questions during the course of the webinar, please put them in your question box on our control panel, and we will endeavor to get back to those at the end of the presentation. We will also be sending out a follow-up email, which will include the slides we're sharing and the webinar recording, so keep your eyes open for that. And if you have any questions, as I said, put them in the control panel, or you can also get in touch with us afterward. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much, Mariana, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. It's a real privilege to be joined by Matt from the Lightcast team and Simon from Simply Get Results. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Andy.
Good, you're there. Always good to pass that first hurdle. So thank you very much for joining us. Matt is our subject matter expert here at Lightcast on the global team around the world of HR and workforce transformation. So excited to get your nuggets of insight in today's session. And Simon, CEO of Simply Get Results, a fantastic partner that we've been working with for a number of years now, and a key part of the journey, the workforce transformation journey for many a company. And so again, very excited to gain from your experience here. And I'm Andy, I lead our global division at Lightcast, which is EMEA and APAC. So working across UK, Europe and Asia Pacific as well. And welcome to today's webinar. If you are new to Lightcast, then welcome. It's a pleasure having you join us today, and I hope you find today's session interesting. If you've been here before, welcome back. Good to have you back with us. And a little quick intro to Lightcast just to set the scene and the context for today's webinar. So we are on a mission to unlock new possibilities in the labour market. The labour market is a transformational place where society and economies are founded, and we all interact with it in our various ways, both personally, but also through the organizations and institutions that we work within. Our view is that to unlock possibilities, particularly in a complex, ever-changing labour market, we first must understand what is actually happening. And so at our core, we are a labour market intelligence organization aiming to shed light on the practicalities and the facts about the labour market and how it's trending. And we bring this data through various services, and we'll share a few examples today, to educators around the world who are agonizing over how do we develop the skills of the future within our communities, governments who are driving economic and labour market policy, and the key focus for today, companies who of course are asking many questions about the labour market in terms of workers and opportunities and how the world is changing. And so today we're going to be diving into that topic as we go through and more about that. So in terms of today's agenda, we're going to sort of pose a big question. When we think about the labour market, historically we would think of types of companies, industries, what sorts of jobs and occupations and roles are driving the economy, and that's something that we track right across the globe. But in recent years, we've been diving into, I suppose, the molecular level of the labour market as we think about ultimately what skills are driving opportunity and need in the labour market. So we're going to pose the question, why should we care about skills, and why is this becoming a hot topic? And particularly thinking about this within the workforce transformation environment as to how skills could be part of the answer to unlocking the challenge. But it's a difficult challenge, and we're going to dive into why this is a big challenge. What does it look like to be a skills-based organization, and ultimately what does success look like? And I'm excited between Matt and Simon to kind of learn more about some of those challenges, but also what the main drivers are behind caring at that level of granularity and detail. And of course, we'll close off by pointing you towards some resources that we think and we hope you'll find useful. So why skills and why now? Let me just dive into this first, and then I'll bring the gentlemen in to add their expertise. And you know, we're hearing everywhere about skills. Skills is a new language, definitely, and the new currency of the labor market. And what we're finding is organizations are looking to manage their workforce in more agile ways, and in ways that really can exploit the great capabilities of existing workforce and help transition towards the workforce of the future. We know there's a lot of drivers around global competition for talent and business, around the drive towards net zero and how that's influencing how we think about work and jobs and activities there and businesses, and also leveraging technology ever more so. And we hear a lot these days about artificial intelligence, AI, and what impact that might have on the workforce. Now, it's easy to think of the negative challenges, but often actually alongside the negatives are plenty of positives. And as we start to reimagine the labor market at the skills level, that's where we can really start to think about those opportunities. And we'll share a few examples as we go through today. It's not just us at Lightcast talking about this, and Simply, Get Results, and other organizations. Major influences in the field, people like Josh Burson, if you follow Josh, have been advocating really about companies starting to think of their workforce in skills terms ever more going forward. And so, you know, do check out Josh and his work. Some fantastic examples there. And as we think about kind of some of the macro perspective that's driving this as well, we hear it in the news daily. Company leaders, governments, major economic groups talking about the pace of change in the labor market and how quickly demand for skills is changing, new skills emerging every day, old skills becoming less needed in the workforce, and driving some real change and fast pace that you know, our job and our mission at Lightcast is to really get to grips with what's happening so that we can leverage the great opportunities this presents. So that's the context. You can read on the screen there, and probably very familiar with some of the big takeaway comments. Let's get some color on that now. And so Simon, I'd like to invite you in and really kind of illuminate to us why is skills such a hot topic in the world of HR, and why should companies be thinking about this if they aren't already on that journey?
Thanks, Andy. Look, as you say, skills are such a hot topic because the demands on everyone's skills are changing quite fundamentally. And all the statistics you just shared about all the skills shortages and how many roles and skills are changing is because how people work is changing, and at an unprecedented pace. It's down to a few factors that we all know and recognize: the relentless uptake in digitization and technology, competition and globalization, all compounded by the COVID pandemic and much of the world, you know, going remote overnight. But I think it's important to recognize that this is every industry, it's every country, it's every job function, it's every level of seniority. People are working differently. And this means they need new and different skills, not only to do their jobs today, but this is going to get worse in the years ahead and not better. This has been described as a skills crisis that we're in the middle of. So why are companies tackling this now? Because they have to. Because this is about survival. Every company, every workforce, every individual needs to know which skills are required for the future. How's that different from today? And what can they do to ensure they've got the skills they need in the short and the long term? And this picture on the screen right now talks about insights and data that HR is dependent on. But actually, the truth is there's quite a blind spot in the corporate world, particularly, and I think across organizations, where, you know, a few years ago, probably most companies weren't thinking about using data to get a grip on the skills they need and the skills they have. But more and more forward-thinking organizations and leaders are waking up to the fact that data and insight can give an advantage in the race to catch up and get ahead of the skills crisis.
Fantastic. And so some of the, you know, you talk about kind of needing to catch up and drive forward. Tell us a little bit about some of the kind of the consequences of maybe not embracing this major shift?
Well, look, firstly, they are probably glaringly obvious to everybody. What if you don't address the skills crisis? What if you don't use data to work out what skills you need? What if you don't identify the most critical skills gaps for your business to succeed? And look, the first risk here is it's put down as time and productivity, but you could call it waste, couldn't you, in plain words? Every organization obviously has to continue to hire and to pay and to train and develop their employees. But if you're focused on the wrong skills, unfortunately, you're likely to be wasting your time and your effort and your money, and actually that can add up quickly to a very big business case. The second example here is about turnover and whether you're failing to attract the talent you need or whether you're failing to retain the talent you need. More than ever today, employees want to know their employers are investing in skills for the future. This has become a make or break decision. Do I join or do I not join? Do I stay or do I go? Am I effective and productive? And finally, of course, costs. Look, the more specifically actually around cost, should you be building or buying the skills of your workforce? And there are plenty of stats around, but I like this one. It can cost 6 times less to build the skills you need in-house. And that's on top of things like retaining corporate knowledge, engagement, culture, and so on. So look, the risks of inaction are everything from not being able to hire or retain the skills you need in your workforce through to, frankly, the viability of your company and your market.
Yeah, good, thank you. So helpful context as to kind of why should we care about skills, and skills as a proxy for capabilities within our workforce. But it's one thing kind of understanding these things. Matt, if I might bring you to forward, the next challenge is actually defining it, right? When we talk about skills, how do we understand what skills we actually need, what skills we've got? So talk us through a little bit of kind of some of what you've experienced and you're seeing.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks, Andy. I mean, the nuts and bolts of some of the client conversations and projects that we have really get into, how do we help them get started and build really solid foundations so that you can leverage the benefits of skills transformation. So, I mean, starting point there, and having worked in HR for more years than I care to remember, that often starts with poor documentation. So if you think about job descriptions that are written and not quality controlled in any way, often written in different languages, written by different people. So when you start to analyze those job descriptions, you realize that actually the terminology of skills that companies are using aren't very accurate. So actually companies honestly come to us and go, we don't know what skills we need because our job descriptions aren't clear enough. And so that's a really fundamental starting point, is do organizations know what skills they need to future-proof their organization? And then we live in I guess in a world of pretty complex HR technology where most organizations are using multiple systems, core HR systems, best of breed platforms, plug-in platforms from different marketplaces. And many of those systems use different terminology to describe skills. So one of the big challenges is, well, how do you make sense of and bring a consistency around the skills you need into those workflows that HR teams are trying to deliver to bring value to the organization? I guess skills prioritization is an important one as well. Is if you think about an average job description, that probably when we analyze those, you end up with somewhere between 20 and 50 individual skills on a single job role. And so not all skills are equal. And one of the things that data can really help to inform is, well, how do you prioritize those skills? And we'll talk a little bit about the use cases of that and some of the ways that we do that. But making sure you're investing in the right skills, as Simon will talk about, right skilling as a key theme of their business, of the Simply organization, is making the right investments in the right skills really pays dividends. And then I guess there's a couple of other bits I'd highlight. One is around benchmarking. It's very easy when you're sitting in your own organization to just think about your own world. But actually, as we know from the data you shared earlier, Andy, the world is changing really fast. And so how do you keep as I describe it, plugged into the matrix of skills so that you understand the context of actually what skills are changing, and how do we compare to our competitors or relevant industry sectors, geographies in the labour market to make sure we're up to date. And there are countless examples of businesses who've gone out of business because they didn't keep an eye on what was going on in the outside world as industries were disrupted. We all know those case studies, right? And then, I mean, finally, I think, and again, there are more reasons than these 5, but I think languages is really hard. The reality is we're working with multinational companies that have operations, in several languages across the world. And so when you're trying to do all of this and you're trying to harmonize language, that's a real challenge, and it's something we've been heavily focused on for the last 6 months or so, is really going, how do we help that multilingual cause, which I'd be delighted to share with people as well, just so that they know the capabilities that we have. Oh, there we go. That's amazing.
Yeah,
How did you...
to that point that I mentioned earlier, of course, the world is a very small place these days. We are thinking ever more about distributed workforces that mean that language, culture. I speak for Lightcast in the fact that we have teams here in the UK, but also colleagues in Germany, in Italy, out in New Zealand as well, spread around. And there are key barriers. So everything you described there, you can multiply by multiple languages and cultures, can't you? So how are we addressing that one?
Yeah, I mean, and again, anyone that's sort of running an international business will face this challenge, is how do we harmonize? But I mean, the pieces of the jigsaw, and I'd say we're on a journey around this. At the moment, the way that we operate is we can translate skills from up to 11 languages, and that list is growing extensively. So if you think of a job description that's written in French or in Czech or in Romanian, we can make sense of that through a skills lens, and we can convert that into the Lightcast language of skills, which is a portfolio of 32,000 or so skills that we maintain and update every couple of weeks, as you know. So having that ability to translate skills from a sort of disparate documentation really helps HR on that journey of harmonization. But then, of course, truly multinational businesses will also run their HR workflows in multiple languages. So what we can also do is convert the language of Lightcast skills into a number of European languages. And again, that's all part of the roadmap that will work with clients to understand which languages are highest priority, so that you can truly have a single approach to skills management in whatever language your documentation's in. So that's kind of the journey that we're on.
Fantastic development. Thanks for sharing that. Simon, you mentioned earlier a little bit about maybe some of the reasons why we should be thinking about skills, and therefore, we would encourage organizations to start to become more skills based, build that base of skills, so that we can understand more about our current situation and our desired situation as a business, and how we move from A to B. So we often refer to that as sort of skills-based transformation, workforce transformation. It's referred to in different ways in different places. So what does that actually mean? Talk us through kind of what that means in practice. And obviously you've worked closely with a good number of organizations that have been working through that transformation journey. So yeah, feel free to kind of share your views of that.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Well, firstly, this is a fantastic question, and just to recognize that there's a huge amount of confusion and uncertainty out there. So if anybody's sitting here on this webinar going, gosh, I wish I knew the answer to that, don't worry. You're in safe hands, and lots of other people are asking the same question. So let me try and bring it to life a little bit. Look, as the world is waking up to the need to get ahead on skills, Typical question I hear is along the lines of, we know we need to do more about skills, maybe become a skills-based organization, but what does that really mean? And actually, firstly, that's one of the reasons that everyone here at Lightcast and Simply, we help our clients through a sort of consultancy-led approach, because what we're trying to help you with is to break your big challenges down into manageable parts, as Matt was saying earlier on. Really important part of the journey. Some people say, eat the elephant one bite at a time. I'm not sure if I like that expression, but some version of that. So the three things that being skills-based probably includes for everybody. The first one is about strategy. And this is looking at your business strategy and your workforce and your HR strategy, and adding in and being clear on the capabilities and skills that are going to deliver that strategy, not just the headcount and roles. And obviously, it's a very big part of what we all help customers with here at Lightcast and Simply. The second is around job architecture, and Matt referred to this earlier. You know, every organization has got their job families and functions and roles and departments and so on. But getting that organized in a way that you can make sense of taxonomies, ontologies, and so on, and making sure that skills is part of that mix. And of course, one of the things we all do here at Lightcast and Simply is add skills into the job architecture mix. And finally, being explicit on how you are attacking your skills problem. And that does, problem, is that the right word? Your skills challenge, your skills need. And that does come down to the prioritization of building and buying skills. And as we were saying earlier, building is really about how you are approaching skills building through career paths and making that clear, and joining those skill building paths up to your role architecture and your job architecture and so on, but also creating advantages for yourself in terms of building skills internally and buying skills from the market. And those advantages are generally created by understanding what supply and demand looks like out there and getting ahead of that in one way or another, and also using concepts like role and skill adjacency to get ahead. So three things really: focusing on strategy around skills, focusing on your architecture around skills, and then absolutely balancing the right steps in terms of building and buying skills. I think those are some of the fundamentals of being skills-based.
Fantastic, thank you. So that's kind of what it is. Let's start to think about a bit more about the why again, as we work through. And so, Matt, tell us a little bit about, you know, as a skills-based as a skills-based organization, bring skills into the fabric of how we think about our workforce and our workforce needs. Bring some practicality as to how that tends to manifest in actual activity within a business.
Yeah. I mean, I think generally what we're seeing is, you know, organizations come to us with a specific use case or initiative that they're trying to deploy, and have realized on the journey that having a robust skills architecture is really fundamental to that, getting the return on investment that they want from that initiative. Now, some organizations start in a different place and have made just the strategic decision to say, we are going to move the whole organization to becoming skills-based. So it might be a bigger program of change. So there are different reasons and therefore business benefits that we're seeing in the market. I mean, I'll just highlight kind of just our take on an experience of what we're seeing with the main use cases. So one is around strategic workforce planning. So no prizes for guessing why is, again, skill shortages, all of the pressure and concerns on human capital teams is going, well, if we've got a lens of what skills we need in the future, where the supply and demand and pressure points are for that globally in the remote world that we're all operating in, you can make better future workforce planning decisions. And so there's a whole number of data points that organizations use there. And then I guess around kind of just the simple process, and I say simple, but the process of hiring effectively is how good our organizations are actually talking the same language of skills, of making sure they're hiring people with the really important skills that move the needle, or indeed using data to make more informed decisions about, actually, this skill is really expensive. So, but what we could do is hire people with a different skill set and cross-train them into that skill. So there are real commercial applications of a skills-based approach to hiring. that kind of leads into what the world of talent marketplaces is rife in the world of HR. So it's kind of the new buzzword for really internal mobility, right? Of how do you make sure that you've got the right skills in the right place at the right time? So that's a big use case, and we often see that with organizations saying we're rolling out a talent marketplace. How do we know the skills that we have in our organization, and then how do we match those individuals to opportunities that are closer to the customer, that can drive more revenue for the organization, etc. And then last but not least would be around learning. So where organizations are making big investments in their development of their workforce, is you've got to drive adoption, right? You want to make sure you're matching the right people to the right content at the right time, so that your workforce holistically is being upskilled with the things you need. And again, that's quite a painful process if you're relying on self-declaration of skills, of people populating their own profiles. So data can help fast track that process to say, these are the skills that you should have. I mean, this is a kind of a nice slide. If I just rattle through this one, Andy. So, I mean, kind of bringing it to life in terms of, you know, how do you convert a job, which you can see on the left-hand side, into, you know, a role that actually is relevant to the broader labour market, and then break that down into different capability groups. We call them categories in our skills taxonomy, and we have categories and subcategories. And then we can break a job down even further into common skills, or soft skills, as people might know them, or specialized skills. So that's kind of the practicalities of what we do in translating a job into skills. Some real examples there. I mean, we've got a number of projects in motion, but one worth highlighting would be with a large drinks business. They're going through implementation of a talent marketplace. They know that they want to get the adoption of that and the data that they have on their workforce to be accurate. So part and parcel of what we're doing with them is going through this very journey of saying, like, let's break down your whole workforce into unique roles. Let's make sure that the data that we have on those roles is really accurate and really sharp, and that we've really focused on the right skills. And then the beauty of once you've got that language is then putting, as I said earlier, putting it into HR workflows. So how do we get these skills into the likes of, you know, HRS platforms or learning platforms or the talent marketplace, to make sure when users are logging in, everything makes sense. And we all know in the world of technology today, you know, we don't have a very high threshold on before we get bored using an application, right? So we'll log in, and if it doesn't look right, we'll give up. And that's the challenge that organizations are facing. So the heavy lifting up front helps get that right, that helps drive the return on investment in your programs. Does that make sense, Andy?
Yeah, thank you. And actually, while we're starting to get into some degree of practicalities, then, you know, just carry on, Matt, and tell us a little bit about how this practically can be built from those foundations you described.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, and we'll talk about some specifics in just a little while, but at a high level, you know, there are three kind of key ingredients to driving success, we believe. And yeah, data is fundamental, and for all the reasons we've talked about. The market's changing. You need to understand what's changing in the market to be future fit. And there are multiple use cases of where that data can be applied, depending on what the business goal is, right? But I think having access to the data, we've all seen the rise of people analytics functions. HR is on that journey to becoming data savvy. And I think we're now at the crossroads where actually HR has realized external data is as important as internal data. So that's kind of the key ingredient, is you've got to have good data. And then what you've got to have is the tools to bring this all to life that serve a number of purposes. Some of them are kind of rudimentary in terms of just making sure that we're analyzing jobs accurately, that we're normalizing data in a consistent way, because you want to make sure that the data you're putting into your transformation programs is accurate. And then you've got insight tools that Simon can talk a little bit about as well. But how do you bring it to life? Because business leaders want to know, tell me the helicopter. I want the sort of the 30,000-foot view of my organization through a skills lens. But then I want to dive deep into, tell me about this job family, tell me about these roles. And all of that's possible. You know, the beauty of BI and the technology that we use is we can build custom solutions to say, tell us the questions that you have, and we can use our data to provide those answers. But let me hand over to Simon just to talk a little bit more about tools.
Yeah, I mean, all I would add really is that one way to look at tools is painting pictures with data and visualizing it and ultimately telling stories to different stakeholders. That is very important. So completely agree with everything you've said there, Matt. And the other way to look at tools really is tools to get jobs done or tools to deliver a process. And again, strategically, that could be, I need to compare my organization to my competitors because I need to understand them and learn from them and make sure we're, differentiating effectively. That's a very, very specific job that you would do through a benchmarking tool or approach. Through the opposite end of the scale, looking into your workforce. Every company has data on your workforce, but it's going to be messy and incomplete and inconsistent. So using tools to understand your workforce better, to perhaps infer skills across your workforce and that sort of thing. So with tools, every tool is focused on doing a job. We've got all the data in the world to do all the jobs you need to do. Every company's on their own journey in terms of where they're trying to get to and how far are they. And the tools is that middle link that just helps you take that next step and helps you take it in an easy and effective and sustainable way.
Fantastic. But of course, as we know, particularly where we're doing something brand new, something transformative, whether a small defined project or the sort of big bang that Matt referred to, that some companies are really going deep into skills-based organizational planning, often comes the challenge of going to new places. So the change management piece, Simon, is often quite a key part of really kind of making sure that the data and tools turn into genuinely productive activity, right?
It really is absolutely critical. The world of skills and the world of becoming a skills-based organization, of getting a grip on skills, whatever language we want to use, look, it's a team sport. It is no individual person or roles or functions responsibility alone to get this done. With any team sport, that means you've got to get your arms around the team and bring them on a journey. So that team also has a leader. It could be people on this call. Every one of these transformation programs has someone that's at the heart of shaping the skills agenda for their organization, but they need to bring a bunch of stakeholders on that journey with them. And that's going to be everybody from the board and the executive team through to every employee who ultimately you need to communicate with and help them on this journey. So yeah, that change management challenge is one to embrace.
Fantastic, thank you guys. So one of the things that we've worked on collectively is really to respond to the question about not just how, but where am I on this journey? There's a lot of components, as we've discovered, and I think this is quite a helpful little model that I'd love for you to talk us through, Simon, just in terms of kind of the skills-based organization maturity approach and how we might think of this and what we're seeing in different organizations as they go on this journey.
Yeah, well, look, I genuinely think there's something for everyone in here. I do love this model, and so let's just start with the top line. We've got four things, and actually it starts with that stakeholder engagement and change management that I mentioned a moment ago. Because wherever you are and wherever you're trying to get to, because you're going to have to take others on this journey, it's worth starting those conversations now. Whether you're early in that journey or you have a program team and all the rest of it, wherever you are, that stakeholder side is really important. Skills strategy and governance. Gosh, it's like there's some consistency to the messages through this webinar. You're asking at a strategic level, where's our organization going? Where's our workforce going? How do we put governance and structure around that? Technical data and infrastructure. Again, we've picked on throughout this session, which is just getting a grip on the architecture that you have in your organization, adding skills to that, using tools to make sure the data joins up and so on. And why do we do any of those things? We do each of those things to lay foundations for the green column on the right-hand side, which is, I'm going to add to this, it's delivering business value, but it's also delivering employee value. And this is really important, because ultimately, a business that has the skills to succeed in its market this year, next year, and the year after that is because the workforce has, and that means that the majority of employees have. So that's a fantastic thing. Whatever your motivation, whether you're the kind of person that looks at the strategic end of the scale and the financial side, or whether you care about individual employees, and I'm sure all of us, it's a balance of both. That business and employee value is why we are doing all of this. So for everyone on this call or looking at these materials separately, I would just suggest two things. One is find your place on this map today. Where do you think you are? And obviously this is exactly what the maturity model is designed to do. Where are you on any of these dimensions? Orient yourself. And then do a second thing. Where do you want to be in 12 months' time? Because that's the journey that you're about to go on, and hopefully you have it covered in terms of the team and the resources and the data and the tools around you. And if not, obviously, you know where to go for support. But that's typically how I've been using this model, and I think customers say it's very helpful.
Thank you. And to bring your elephant back in the room, it's great to think about how we can take just some of those bite-sized pieces to go on the journey rather than agonize over how we take the whole thing down and fill our bellies with it. Because it's a big elephant. So yes, no, good stuff. And so we've laid the foundations here, and I hope folks have found it interesting to think about the why behind this, a bit more about what we actually mean, and how does that apply to your business challenges and opportunities. Gents, I suppose kind of to help bring this to some pragmatic thinking, tell us a little bit about the 10 steps we've outlined here. First, Matt, on the build side, and then Simon, you can jump in on the optimization side of things to really think about next steps and clear actions.
No, great, Andy, and let's break it into nuts and bolts, because I think people want, sometimes skills can be a bit intangible, and the fear of where do we actually start. So, I mean, the focus, and it really links to what Simon just talked about around business value, right? Is the way that we start working with organizations is really by defining, well, which are the jobs in your organization that are most important? Because, hey, everyone wants to look at skills and the value that can be created across the whole organization. But the reality is some roles create tangible value with customers, create revenue, mitigate risk. So working out what those roles are, really important, and then think about the nature of the market that you want to benchmark against. So it might be direct competitors, it might be actually aspirational organizations that you really admire in particular functional disciplines or technical disciplines. So really, getting started is really easy by just answering a couple of simple questions. Where do you want to start the focus? Who do you want to compare against? And so we do that pretty quickly with clients, and can then say, right, now we can start to build those profiles. The second step, nuts and bolts, is around normalization. Really exciting term, I know, but normalization, to put it into English language, is as just translating your job titles, which are always weird and wonderful in the world of HR, and making sense of them so that we know how to compare them against the outside world. We're fortunate that we have taxonomies to do that, and multiple taxonomies, and we actually use 3 different taxonomies to go through that process. To make sure that we get really broad coverage of mapping the roles of a company to the outside market really accurately. Because once we've done that, then we know we can build really accurate skill profiles. So then we actually build the skill profiles, and we do that using AI, using machine learning, and using, most importantly, and I've put on point 4, human eyes, because actually, whilst our technology and models can be really helpful in giving us the right direction, what we actually need to do once the machines have done their work is QA and quality assure that work and make sure that everything makes sense. So what you end up with there is really clean set of skills profiles where you've prioritized the skills that are most important to the organization, and we've done that in some clever ways, and that it's focused on solving a real business problem. And then we take that data and we say, where do you want us to put it? So it might be that that's just in your core HR system. It might be in your recruitment or learning system or talent marketplace. And so we build those crosswalks and integrations to make sure that the data is in the right place at the right time so that you can get value from it with the main projects that you're running. And then Simon, I mean, in terms of optimization, I'll hand that over to you.
Sure, let me pick up on some of these at a similar level of detail. Skills gaps, obviously, is the difference between the skills you need and the skills you have, but also prioritized, because all skills gaps are not equal. So skills you need, driven from benchmarking and looking at the company strategy and identifying the capabilities that matter most for your organization and your workforce. Skills you have, using, mapping your job architecture and your current job titles, using Lightcast data to an organized taxonomy of roles and skills so that you can baseline the skills you have. So skills gaps is about triangulating that. Workforce planning, yes, which of these do you build versus buy? Adding the concept of capability onto your planning around headcount and cost. So some, again, consistent in terms of looking at your organization through the lens of capability. Internal mobility, again, about laying out the steps for every role, for every function. Where can you go next? Where can you get skills and skills from? What does that path look like? And again, using Lightcast tools and data just to map that path for all of your employees. From the center of your organization, looking out across your workforce and helping to direct that journey, and for each employee, helping them take their own steps on that. Learning, because I'm going to leave the last one because I know we're going to come back to it. Learning really about figuring out which learning interventions are the right ones to close those skills gaps that we mentioned earlier. And that's about, again, being clear on the skills that matter most. So each of these steps kind of flows. Doesn't mean you need to do all 10 of these in order. You can pick and choose, and depending on where you are on the journey, you might be starting at step 3 or step 7 and so on.
Yeah, fantastic. Or step 9 is a very popular step by the looks of it. So there we go. So yeah, you hinted at it, Simon. So feel free to kind of share some further thoughts about where we think, where we're seeing the kinds of ROI in doing this. What's the point? As you say, always connect it back to the business drivers. So what have you seen in your journey?
Well, look, there are a few great stats here that people can use and apply to their organization. But actually, big thing I want to highlight is that investing in skills should have a significant positive business case. If your current business case for this says we have to spend lots of money and it's just the downside, the other side of that should be at least 10. I would encourage everyone to look for at least 10 times return on investment and to look for in-year break even, because these things are very much achievable. It's also worth saying that not all skills programs demand a business case, because actually, if you follow the logic of what we're covering today, these looking at skills is so fundamental, it's so important, it's so urgent. The risk of not is so clear that not every program that is signed off and funded and progresses is down to the nuts and bolts of the business case. But when it is, and a business case never hurts, it should be a strong, clear, positive one, just built through logic like you see on the screen, specific to your organization. The numbers add up very, very quickly. And I think it's safe to say that if anyone needs a hand with business cases like those, all of us here are very happy to help.
Fantastic, thank you. Good, compelling to see real life examples that we've experienced collectively from serving customers and helping them through some of these specific transformations. So that's I think the majority of what we're going to cover off. So thank you very much, Matt and Simon, and for walking us through, I think, some pretty practical ways that hopefully our viewers can be pondering where they fit in the journey, where the opportunities lie, what the priorities are for their business. And it goes without saying that we would be delighted to learn more about the challenges that you're facing and to kind of share examples and maybe come and provide some ideas as to how Lightcast simply get results can kind of serve you in that agenda there. Certainly feel free to reach out to us. There'll be contact information as we follow up this webinar through a follow-up email. You'll also get access to these slides, so hopefully they're helpful for you to share with colleagues and reinforce your thinking. I would love to point you towards some resources that I think build on what we've just discussed here. So as you get the slides in your presentation, you should find those hyperlinked to some web pages where we've built out a bit more detail behind what we've shared today, some blog articles and some resources that way. So please do head to the Lightcast website and dive into those if you want to learn more. I also want to point you towards thinking practically about skills and understanding skills and thinking about what skills are driving change in the labor market. We actually this time next week we'll be running a webinar talking about a new skills transformation index that we've just launched that illuminates for across Europe some of the kind of key skills that are really driving change in labor markets. So if you want to kind of think about that outside world and then think about how that feeds into how you're thinking about your own business, then I'd encourage you to sign up to the webinar. Head to Lightcast webinars page under resources and sign up for that. And I'm sure we can throw a link as we follow up. So hopefully kind of continues to build out this thinking about what do we mean by skills and what are we seeing in the labor market and in terms of what's driving real change as well. So that's, I think, a wrap for us. We do have maybe a minute or two just to throw the floor open to questions. So Mariana, do we have anything from today's audience that we might want to throw at Simon or Matt?
Hi, Andy. We do actually have 4 questions. If we don't have time to answer these, we will get back to you personally. But the first question is another driver of a focus on skills the fact that we now have the technology, such as LLMs and AI, that can enable us to get and interrogate large data sets? To what extent are technologies advances driving the interest and focus in becoming more skills driven?
Great question. Yeah, who wants to jump in on that one?
I mean, I'll give a perspective. I think it's interesting with the transformation index work that we've done anyway, is recognizing that, of course, technology is the pace of change in technology skills is obviously very, very fast. And we're seeing that the morphing of technical skills into what were traditionally non-technical jobs. So I think there's kind of just recognizing that jobs are changing, but yeah, the AI elements obviously enable that. But what we're also seeing is skills changing in non-technical jobs as well. And so this isn't just about change in the world of technology, it's about change right across the labor market in all kinds of roles and occupations.
So what you're saying is obviously a big driver to a lot of why we should be thinking about reimagining our workforce in skills terms is because skills like technology skills in particular are really driving change in the workforce, but that those same technologies, like we've just been talking about, are enablers to look at the labor market and to think about how we integrate more of that into maybe historically non-technical areas like HR, for example. Yeah. So yeah, two-sided for sure. Any other kind of highlight questions just while we have 30 seconds or so?
One more question here is, when defining skills for an organization, is the best approach to start with jobs, so bottoms up, or to think more holistically about strategy and what the organization is trying to achieve, so top down, or both?
Good question. Simon, do you wanna jump in on that one?
Yeah, I think anyone paying attention in the last 45 minutes will know what my answer might be. So look, I have a bias towards starting from the top and starting from the outcome and starting from the strategy. It's like if you're going to go on a journey, you kind of need to know where you're heading. So I have a bias towards that. However, the actual answer is you've got to end up doing both. And what we find is that most people have a preference one way or another. Some people are really quite detailed, bottom up, and that's great, in which case lean into it, embrace it. But find someone to work with that's strategic and top down, because most people do have a preference one way or another. That perfect team could be a team of 2, someone from a bottom up perspective, someone from a top down perspective. You come together and you sort the whole thing out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Saw, just a quick comment on that. I saw a stat this morning actually that was through the members of the People Analytics Insight 222 forum, and that was that 65% of People Analytics initiatives in the last 12 months haven't delivered business value, and that's a startling concern. It is, you have to be solving business problems through these investments, not just doing things because it's interesting work or because it helps with a system implementation. There has to be a business driver behind these programs that you can measure. It's that.
Good challenge to leave us with there. Thank you, Matt. So I think we've run out of time now, but thanks to everyone for the questions. And as Mariana says, we will endeavour to come back to answer any unanswered questions. Thank you, Mariana, for looking after us today on your debut webinar for Lighthouse Webinars. So thank you very much. And thank you, Matt, and thank you, Simon, for your expert contributions, fascinating topics. And I hope you've fueled some interesting discussion and thoughts that we can be supportive of after this session. So we're excited to connect with everyone. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks very much, everyone.